start to rise. The energy fill the skies.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Beneath the Surface as we come to you from the lovely studios of Tobago Updates Television. And I hope everybody's well and so on and ready for the challenges of this week ahead. As we continue with the program Beneath the Surface, where we interview all the members of the Tobago House of Assembly, those on the government side, those on the those persons on the minority, and of course included the councillors and the presiding officer. Hopefully we'll get all those persons, and most of them are scheduled to be on this program between now and the 6th of December. Tomorrow, before I forget, we will have Tashia Boris, but today we have in the studio with me is the Assistant Secretary for Education and Technology.
Research and Technology.
Yeah, Education, Research and Technology in the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Orlando Kerr, Councillor. Councillor, how are you going this morning? Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. And I'm doing quite fine.
You know how long I've been looking forward for this opportunity to have this chat with you, whether officially or informally. Okay. You know, I mean, or people refer to you as one of the decent persons in the Tobago House of Assembly. You know, I don't know how they came to that conclusion so quickly. Maybe it's a past record, though.
Well, I would want to think so, and I'm hoping that I do not disappoint. But I have enough confidence that I won't, because I believe in some very strong principles, and I intend to hold on to those principles. So I've heard a lot of persons say when you get into politics you are compromised and whatever. But I beg to differ. I think that you can be an honest politician, and I intend to try to do that.
Yeah, I had that kind of issues when I about to enter politics. They said, Gerry, you're too decent to enter politics, keep out of that. But I was determined to try and see if I could make a difference as a youngster, you know. Anyway, we want to get to you're a teacher from Stone, but before we get to even teaching and your entry into politics, how that was really. I mean, you decided one day that you're going to enter politics or be involved in political activity, or somebody beg or force you, or the community at one stage in mind, the community came down on me and said, listen, you have to contest, but you have to be part of this process of enlightenment and so on. How that worked?
I think my coming into the spotlight happened when I became the Tobago Officer of Tutor in 2014. And being someone who had a passion for change and improvement and so on, I know you remember some of the things that would have happened. I would have had numerous battles with different secretaries, Mr. Cadet, Mr. Charles, and so on, all to the betterment of education on the island, right? And I think that, you know, that would have been the catalyst for me being sought after by many of the political parties, because when I demitted office in 2020, I was approached by different political organizations. And the funny thing is that I always said that I didn't want to get into politics. I had a very low view of politicians from my interactions with politicians, from being you know, a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and where you hear politics has a morality of its own. You're seeing a politician saying one thing now, and in the next 2 months they change their whole demeanor. You know, you get the impression that as though they don't stand up for anything. You know, so I really did not want to be associated with politics. You know, so I turned down all the offers that came my way. You know,
that was in 2020.
Yes, in 2020 and even beyond 2020, there was a time when I wouldn't call the organization. They literally staked me out. Almost every other day, somebody else was coming to ask me, you know, and persons in the community as well, you know, asked me if I'm not willing to serve and so on. And I said, you know, I don't want to get into politics. You know, even my former organization, there were officers who felt that, hey, you're setting a platform for getting into politics. And I was like, I am just simply trying to do what I have to do to the best of my ability. You know, I believe strongly in certain things, and I tried my best to improve the terms and conditions of teachers in Tobago. And I think to a large extent, my 2 terms in office were successful terms. You know, and
You
we
couldn't
did
do more than 2
achieve.
terms, right?
No, we are statute barred in tutor. So I think that a lot was achieved. And again, as I said, it is because of my belief and how I believe that, you know, when you give persons the assurance that you're going to serve them, that you serve them without fear, no favor, malice, or evil. So
But
that
you,
was
yeah.
when I came into the spotlight, basically.
But you grew up in Delaford, right? Tobago East.
Yes, yes. I grew up in Delaford, humble beginnings, family of 6 children, my mother and my father. We weren't rich. We were, I can't say we were middle class. Things were challenging. And, you know, I grew up in the old time days, you know, and I went to Scarborough Secondary. I attended Delaford EC, Delaford Anglican School. I'm an Anglican. And then I went to Scarborough Secondary. That was when Scarborough Secondary was 3 years, and then you go to Signal Hill. And then I went to Signal Hill. I wouldn't call the year because I don't want anybody to try to guess my age. But
So kind of assuming that already.
right, but they will know it was a while back because at that time Scarborough Secondary was a junior
Was growing
secondary.
up in Delaford.
Well, to be honest with you, I often
That was an agriculture production zone, if you could tell me, most of those areas in Tobago East around that time, you know,
well, to be
agricultural.
quite honest, I am very happy with growing up in the countryside. As a matter of fact, I live about 150 meters from where I grew up. My house is just a stone throw away from my mother's house. And I will not leave Delaford for anything. No, I will not, because I think that there are some things, you know, there are some persons who will say, you know, they want to live in the countryside and so on. But especially now where you can simply sit on your phone and pay your bills and all of that, there's no need. And Scarborough is about a 40-minute drive, which I am accustomed to because I grew up there, you know. So I have no desire to move to the city, you know, at all, because I think that there are some advantages to living in the countryside, and I won't even go into them because I know that it's going to spark a whole big debate. But really, that in my view, Tobago is country. You know, when you go to big cities and so on, then you understand that there isn't really no.
In other words, it's more rural.
Yeah, yes, there is really no major town in Tobago to say that, you know. But you know, I'm quite happy with where I grew up and how I grew up.
Were you like a kind of spoiled child or
No,
something
no,
like
I
that?
was the last child, but I wasn't spoiled. You know, I think that I had my share. You know, back in those days, you had to, you know, do your chores. You know, you had to do your chores before you go to school. You had to do your chores when you return home. Now, because I was the last, I mean, I had minimal chores to do, but you had to do your chores nonetheless. You know, and there are many things that, many of the things that I believe in today that I learned from my father. Some of the things, you know, some of his sayings I still see today. And you know that our parents would have had a lot of great influence on our lives, you know, and so on. So I am really happy, and I had some really good teachers at my school, you know, when I went to Delaford EC and so on. And even to today, you know, I have a very good relationship with all of my teachers, those who taught me at primary school and those who taught me at secondary school. And, you know, each of them brought something different. But you always remember some little thing that, you know, some teacher, you know, would have
Were your
taught
parents
you.
work in the agricultural sector or they
Well,
otherwise
I think initially my
engaged?
father worked in the agricultural sector, and then he started to work in PTSC as a bus conductor. So that he was known, you know, for, because remember, as a bus conductor, you would have traversed the island, different places and so on. And back in those days, the majority of persons used the bus, you know, to get around and so on. So he was well known, you know, as a bus conductor, you know, throughout Tobago and so on. So he worked in PTSC until he retired after that.
Yeah. So you have good and fit and fun memories of Delaford, and you don't want to live there at all. According to some people, I tell people I was born, bred, and baked in Plymouth. Maybe you could say the same thing about Delaford.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. I mean, I think a lot of people that find that they have bad things to say about the village, they have good things to say about the village and so on. But based on the experiences that I had, you know, growing up in Delaford, I started to play football with the team in Delaford. Back in those days, we had the country league, as we used to call it, and so on. And I wouldn't trade those days, because I think that Those days were really, really good days. I remember when we played against like Speyside or Charlottesville. The entire
crowds coming
ground
out
of
for it.
Louisville was filled with people. You don't see that kind of support for football anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was the entire village coming out to look at the game. When you play in Speyside, the entire village coming out. And, you know, I wonder, you know, we have really changed because maybe it's because of the technology. People can look at English League, football, and whatever at home. But back in those days, a football game in Louisville
was a big thing.
was a huge deal. A huge deal. You know, when we played against Roxbury Lakers, same thing. It was a huge deal. So, you know, things have changed, but I wouldn't trade the time that I grew up. I absolutely love the era that I grew up in. And, you know, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. Your areas of specific responsibilities, any special area that you were assigned to, or you just operate as an assistant to the secretary?
Well, mainly I operate as an assistant to the secretary. But because of my background in tutor, because of my knowledge of the HR issues in particular, because you know that when I was in tutor, those were the things that I was championing. So that I am tasked with the responsibility of the HR matters. The issue with the maxi taxi drivers and so on, I had spearheaded that consultation. Of course, the secretary was a part of it as well. But generally, we work together, right, on various matters. Whenever there's a need for representation, if the secretary cannot make it and I can make it, I would go and so on. So we have that kind of interaction where, you know, we fill in. Once there are meetings, of course, you know that it's not every meeting that both of us will be able to attend. So we try to, as far as possible, you know, have that kind of representation at all the different meetings. So if I can't attend, she would attend. And then after that, of course, there is the follow-up where we would bring each other up to speed as to what is happening and so on.
Yeah. But that is good. I like that model, you know, compared to some of the other division. And it's more suited for that sort of operation in education, in the division, you know, especially where both of you were involved seriously in the education sector. You know, I like that model where you just provide assistance wherever it's needed and you deputize accordingly or appropriately. How you view the education system today? Look at it broadly first and we kind of zero in on Tobago. Are you satisfied with the system that we have? Do you think that this education system brings out the best in people, or is just a race for the swiftest and the brightest?
Well, let me first make a disclaimer that the views expressed on that matter are solely my views. And I think that to a large extent, it will be the views of our administration. It is something that I know that we would have said we want a dual track system of education.
What you call
A
it?
dual track where it
dual.
means yes, that you can pursue the academics, but also you should supposed to be able to do the vocational areas and so, as well. I have taught at primary level and I also taught at secondary level. And our education system, as it is in its present state or present the present system is very, what should I say, is designed for some children to fail. As a teacher,
it's designed for some children to fail and some children to do well.
I have gone on record as saying that I have no challenges with universal secondary education, but I have a challenge with universal secondary education as it is done in Trinidad and Tobago. Because no one can convince me if a child cannot master the basic skills in mathematics and language, and after a certain age, they are simply just placed at a secondary institution where they are expected to do academic work, then the system is designed for that child to fail. Because I don't think that we are doing our children any justice by simply placing them at a secondary school, regardless of their competencies, but based on their
Except
age.
the secondary school have this kind of almost, you might call it a dual track, but opportunities for the child to excel in the area where he or she has some level of interest.
Well,
You know?
the thing about education is that they tell you that the theory of multiple intelligences tells you that everyone has intelligence, but not in the same way. And that is the principle under which we should have our universal secondary education. So that we should not only have academic secondary schools. And that is the model that we should move towards, where a child that is gifted and talented by working with their hands should be placed at an institution where they are given that opportunity. A child that can listen to a piece of music and play it should be given the opportunity to go to those kinds of institutions. And of course, once you are where your strengths are, the academics is going to fall in line. I remember when I taught primary school, and we had back in those days standard 6 and 7, and some of the boys who were not successful at it was common entrance back in the day, they were able to, while they were having challenges with mathematics, when Mr. Perry at the time was doing little woodwork with them and so on, and teaching them measurement, those boys were able to learn measurement because it became something that was functional. They needed to learn
part of what they're learning.
they needed to learn to measure to do the carpentry. So they learned, but if you sat in a classroom and try to teach them measurement in this abstract way, they were not able to learn it. And therefore, the human condition is that you're going to learn things that you need to learn to function. And therefore, I call it going through the back door, where you can have children excel in the academics by putting them in an area that they like. So once they like it and they are good at it and they experience success, they are going to learn the academics. So rather than trying to put them in a secondary school that is academically inclined and try to get them to learn this thing that they have challenges with, put them where they are strong. Put them in areas in schools that cater to their needs, and they are going to excel. They are going to learn the academics. Yeah. But I think that the fact that we have, well, from the knowledge that I have, we have only academic secondary schools with a few with tech voc wings and so on. And our failure rate at CXC is already very high. I'm talking about nationally. So it tells you that there isn't.
And Tobago is not high up on that zone, on that thing, on that area.
Nationally, I don't have the actual stats, but I know that it is high. So it tells you that there is no need for any new academic secondary school. We have enough. What we need is specialist schools for children who have different strengths. And that is where we need to go. But I think that the politics affect a lot of what we do. Because we can sit here, and I think both of us can agree, that our model of universal secondary education is not working. As a matter of fact, I have the belief that it is linked to a crime situation now, where when children are placed at secondary school now
and they can't cope,
and they cannot cope, and they cannot succeed, it is easy target for gangs to recruit. Because remember, I am not good at anything. I can't do the math, I can't do the language, but I can stick you up with a gun or I can bully you. Then I'm experiencing success someplace. So it's easy, they are easy targets now for gangs to recruit them. And that is, to me, where we have to focus. Because if we have to change our crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago, make no bones about it, we can buy as many police cars as we want. We can equip the police with whatever. If we do not change our philosophy of education, we are going to be in the same problem. And that is where we need to look at. But as I said, politics of the day affects everything. Because I think that I remember when Mr. Pandey announced universal secondary education, I was a teacher in the system. It was announced over July, August, and the Prime Minister said it and it had to happen. And I remember back in the day, they weren't ready. We had to put children in Roxburgh Bay School on a wing and so on. We had to find teachers to teach them and so on. It wasn't well taught out. Now, as I said, the idea of universal secondary education is a good one. But we in Trinidad and Tobago, we tend to have great ideas, but we don't take our time to flesh them out. We don't take our time to have them well implemented and so on. Right? We want to rush it so that we could say that we did it. But very often we do not take the time to do the thing, the prerequisites and so on, and put the thing in place properly. And I think that was around 2006 or someplace there. We're in 2023. 2006 or so, I think, because I was at primary school then. And we have not made any adjustments to what we started. So even if that was the beginning of it, right? You are saying that so many years later, we have not learned that
And
it's
so
not
many
working.
administrations after.
Exactly, correct. And no administration wants to touch it because they believe that they will pay a political price. But what about what is happening to this country now? In terms of, if you look at the criminals, the persons who are killing persons without even thinking, look at the age group and look at when we started this universal secondary education. I am of the view, as I said earlier, it's my view, that there's a direct correlation between when that started and what is happening now with our crime situation. And I think that if we don't address it, if we don't address it, we're going to continue to go down this road. Because we need to have our young people experiencing success. We need to have our young people being valued and so on, and being able to do what they are good at.
Yeah, let's take a quick break and come back and we continue this discussion on education and the system, whether we really need to pursue in a serious way this dual track system and encourage children to operate in an environment where they can be the best they can. We go for a quick break and we will return. Here we back, folks, and we continue having this important educational chat with Orlando Kerr, the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Education, Science and Technology.
Research and technology.
Research and technology. Education. Education. Make it easier to everybody to remember.
Yes.
But Orlando, there's an issue that I want to clarify with you in terms of your role, your former role as union rep, as teachers rep in the union, and your Tobago rep, and now your role as education secretary or assistant secretary in education. Is there not some conflict sometimes, or how people view you, with some ambivalence, or so how you treat with this sort of thing, and gain some respect in the whole process?
Okay. Let me see how best I can answer that question. And I'm very happy that you asked that question, because it's a question that I got some criticisms for when I came on this program, and I think the union was going to engage in protest action. And I was asked by the host what was my view. And I said then that the union has to do what the union has to do. But I, as assistant secretary, cannot ask the teachers to remain at home. And I felt that that was straightforward, because now I wear a different hat. And as assistant secretary, I would want our students to be taught and supervised and be safe in the classroom. So the notion that you were union rep and now you're quiet about certain issues is really far from the truth. Because the reality is that even now, I insist on safe, secure environment for teachers. I insist on all the things that I would have advocated for when I was in tutor. The difference is that I am now the employer and not the union. So you cannot, as the employer, I'm not sure how you will then, as the employer, represent against yourself. It is, let me give an example.
Is it really representing against yourself?
No, what I
or
mean
taking
is,
up some of the issues
exactly,
that you yourself took up and maybe following through it or take it to another level. And you think, well, you're in a position that maybe these things could be done much easier. And
that happens. That happens because just as, okay, let me give an example. When I was in tutor, we were advocating for appointment of teachers who are on contract. Since I became Assistant Secretary of Education, we have moved mountains with that. We are actually completing the...
What data you have to prove that?
No.
That is one
No. What I'm saying, I'm explaining. We have actually, we have a task force who is completing some work now in terms of the establishments at Speyside and those schools. We are almost complete with that. Very soon, our objective is to have nobody on contract in Tobago. And we are moving assiduously towards that. Now, obviously, that is affected by external agencies like the Teaching Service Commission and those agencies. And we have already started discussion in terms of expediting that.
But how you expediting that? You know that is that will take a year.
No. Well, one of the things that we would have said to the commission is that
I'm trying to understand why you want to move away from the contracted teachers.
No. Contract
it's easier
teachers
to do. It's easier to bring.
No.
It's easier even to dismiss.
No, contract teachers are actually at a disadvantage because they don't have security of tenure. There is no opportunity for advancement, no opportunity for promotion, right? And they complain, as I can tell you, that if they go to get a mortgage, because they're on contract, they can't get mortgages and so on. So they're at a disadvantage.
Look at these things. If you have more than one contracted in,
no, but the reality
consider that as regular.
The reality is that for many things that I don't want to go into because of time, a contract teacher is at a disadvantage. You know, even when you look at the present situation with the arrears of salary, contract teachers are not going to get that because they are not in the system, right? Remember, contract teachers are not.
But Orlando,
teachers.
That can be addressed by discussing and arranging an appropriate level of compensation, where you take all of that kind of thing into consideration.
I think that it is something that can be looked at, but I'm saying that.
But my point is, you could do that or pursue your having the teachers brought, streamline them with the Service Commission program.
Do you know that there is no contract teacher in Trinidad? Not one. At any secondary school?
We had to do that in Tobago, you know why? Because at the same time it will take to get all these people appointed.
And that is the point that there was a discrepancy in the system. But that does not mean, and I understand why it had to be done when it was done, because I was there, and I know that sometimes you needed a teacher. And the time that the Service Commission is taken to appoint this teacher, you, as the person in charge of education in Tobago, cannot simply wait until the commission comes, so you have to bring the person in on contract.
Of course.
But I'm saying also that that is not the ideal, and that it affects a lot of things. Because let me explain. Just look at this scenario. If you're a teacher on contract and on contract at, say, a secondary school for 10 years, and I, a young teacher graduated from university, and depending on the area, I get appointed to teacher 3 at that school today. Today, I become senior you. You are there for 10 years. But you're on contract, and I get appointed today in the normal system. I become senior you, and therefore that cannot be right. And therefore we have to move to getting all our teachers in the system the way they are supposed to be in the system, so that they don't miss on any opportunities for acting or for promotion of heads of department and all of these things. All our teachers must get that opportunity, because the reality is that there are teachers who are very competent, who should be given those opportunities, but because they are not appointed in the system, they cannot. And therefore, you know, we have to try to fix the system. It's not going to be easy, but that is just one example that we are trying to fix it. We have started the process. We have gotten some verbal commitment from the commission that they are going to help us to expedite it, because we need to work with them. And that, again, speaks to autonomy in Tobago as well, because when you have to go to Trinidad for almost everything, even as it relates to some of those schools like Speyside and Godot, where the establishments are limited and there are some positions that are not on those establishments, we have to go to cabinet to get it created.
But that was done.
Right? Nobody, remember, you have to do the first part. You have to appoint first. And then when you appoint the persons into the positions, then you can make a case for more. You can't make a case for all, for additional spaces, and you still have some spaces. So what we are doing, we are auditing the system, filling the gaps that are there now, and then we will make a case for more. Now, this process is going to take some time.
Yeah.
But it is not something going to happen in a month.
Use some teachers.
No, but there are teachers, they want
contract teachers to do something, and there are some teachers, there are quite a lot of teachers, they want to get a start, they want to get some experience, and after 5 years, they want to go on to
the point is, though, with that situation, those teachers are already in the system. So it's not that those classes are not being taught. Those teachers are there.
Okay.
So we are utilizing the teachers who are already there.
Okay.
But we are going to be making an attempt to have them appointed in the system. So we're not going to look for new people. You have been teaching in the position. We are going to try to get you appointed as a bona fide teacher in the system.
So in other words, what you say now is that your role previously as tutor rep complements, and your experience in that area complements what you're doing presently and trying to fast track it. And you say you're moving mountains in terms of that.
Yes, we have, for the time that we have been there, we have looked at a lot of the areas where we have challenges, and we have had challenges for years, and we are addressing them. right? And that is how you move forward. When you are on this side, you know, you don't go out there and make noise for it to be done. You do it. So that is the difference. But you do it and you're doing it quietly. You're not going out there and saying, but you know, so I'm saying that these things are happening.
Right. I
We have
wanted to
already
get into some
signaled.
other areas.
Yeah, we have already signaled to our teachers and so on. You have to get ready for when the interviews come and so on. But we are doing it. But you're not out there making it the biggest issue. And there are so many other issues that we have identified that we need to fix, and we are fixing quietly in the division. So, you know, I don't know that people could say that, well, no,
communication is important.
No,
You
that
must
you're not
communicate
doing
with
anything
teachers,
and
your
so on.
stakeholders, communicate
Yeah.
with your stakeholders, let them know what you're doing, and of course the general public.
Yes,
They want to
correct.
know what's in. Let's look at an issue that is quite confusing to me at times. The syllabus for this country for the students or teachers. Sometimes you get the pushback that the syllabus had to be completed. And sometimes you hear the syllabus can't be completed. You can't achieve everything or pursue everything in the syllabus. What on earth is the purpose of the syllabus? If the teacher says it's difficult to complete, and of course you have a set of mixed children in the class and in the school, what was the objective of the syllabus? I thought the syllabus is a general guide to what you should try to accomplish, you know, giving you a specific school situation. You can't be it all for all the schools.
I think the thing about it is, and we spoke to it earlier, there are certain pressures in the system. And very often, I might take some licks for this, teachers try to teach the syllabus and not teach the children.
Oh, Lord.
Because, teachers forgive me, I'm a teacher and I did it too. Because you have an exam coming up. We have an exam coming up and you are pushing, really, really pushing to try to get the children ready for the exam. And that is one of the reasons why I am of the firm view that this country needs to look back at our selection process for secondary school. Because that C exam is one of the typical examples that I can use, where
Because the
pressures of
you
it
to prepare.
yes,
for
the pressures of it, teachers tend to, you know, you're just running. I taught Standard 5 for years, and I can tell you, I used to have classes, and, you know, you're just, as we say in Tobago language, you're just jamming because you're just going, trying to get them ready for the exam. And then certain areas are neglected because at that time, you were in Standard 5, you weren't doing art, you weren't doing music, you weren't hardly doing any science, you're not testing science, you may do most of that after the exam, and that kind of thing. So that we need to, as I said, it's the whole system that creates that pressure on teachers, and your school is measured by how many passes you get at C. So obviously, I mean, so that some things are neglected. Exactly. So if we look at our system, our education system, and change our system where the teachers can actually focus on developing each child to their strengths and so on, without the pressures of the exam, as I spoke earlier about the universal secondary education and the model, where children will be continuously assessed and they will be placed at a school based on their strengths and so on. And we do away with this competitive nature where some persons in Trinidad and Tobago would rather die than have the status quo change because they believe in the notion that my child must be prestige and this and that and whatever. We need to move away from that, because I think it's in our head where we believe that a child who, for example, can do mathematics and so on is better than a child who can fix an engine. There are some children who naturally have the affinity to look at a car engine and learn mechanic. But in our mind, mechanic is for the child who donks. That's what we just tell you, or textbook is for the child who can't do anything else. And that is where we as adults as well, we perpetuate this thing. We push the notion that you do the academics first, and then maybe if you fail that, then you fall back on something, you fall back on one of these areas, the textbook areas, when it is not supposed to be that way. Right? Because persons who are very intelligent can and should be in tech work, because if that's your calling and that's the area that you want to get developed in.
And if you're well trained in these areas, a boy, hotelier was telling me recently that he had a plumber, real good professional plumber, came in to do some plumbing works in his system and so on. and the bill after 2 days was some
Oh, so you understand.
$16,000.
So you understand.
In 2 days,
The-
you know,
the kind of money that
I don't know
mechanic-
which average lawyer or doctor,
Exactly, exactly.
you know, average doctor, you know, getting that kind of thing after 2 days.
And you're correct.
You know,
You're correct, because I think, as I said, we as excuse, parents, we also push it. And let me give you another area that
before you go there, let's take a break. They're telling me I have to take another
Okay,
break.
sure, no
So,
problem.
folks, we go for a quick break and come back and we continue chatting with Orlando Kerr. Yeah, Orlando, we just want to chat about the tech vox situation. Maybe we could just spend another 2 or 3 minutes on that, because we have to move to that and be the serious agent of change here in Tobago to get to some of these
correct.
issues. You know, how are we going to look at, how are we going to try to at least start the process of making one of the schools a major tech vox thing, like a John Donald's.
Yeah, but I know that we
Like
have,
what it used to
we
be,
have
right?
actually started at Roxburgh Secondary, because we have some below for Roxburgh Secondary. We are doing some work there now. We're doing some work in the hall. We're transforming it into an indoor facility, right? So that a mini indoor facility. So that, because one of the challenges that we realize is that all our students, when they participate in sport, they play on hard surfaces, but when they go to Trinidad to participate, they have to play on the wooden surface and they have to transition. So we want to give our students that kind of exposure. Now we know we have the indoor facility that is earmarked for baccalaureate, but we also want to give persons in the East an opportunity that they can get that kind of feel. So that has already started, and we are looking
That is at the school.
At the school, but of
So
course
it's a
we want to
school
make it
level for community.
we want to make it available. When it
community
come
as
with the
well.
community as well, I think the school
Yeah.
can also make some fun. So there are some plans in that
Yeah.
regard.
So what are the tech vox areas that
Right,
you're
and
looking
then the school itself has a tech voc program. I think part of one of the challenges is the getting tutors. You know that we have a dirt with tutors, right? But they have I know the metalwork program is going on and so on. We want to complement and supplement the equipment and machines there, and we want to build it out, because one of the things we realize is that we can't do it at every school. So what we want to look at a school in the east and one in the west. Also, we want to open back the trade school at Roxburgh properly and the one at Bonaccord, because we recognize that we need to have our students or boys engaged and so on, and our girls who want to go into that direction. We want to have them
I think you
engaged.
should change the name and let people don't feel it's a trade. And you know, this kind of way, long time, if you ain't do well, go on a trade.
But- and that is-
it
that
has
is-
a derogatory kind
Yes.
of connotations, which I think that we should move away from. There's so many other nice names
Yes.
and uplifting and have an improved kind of system in the same so-called trade centers.
I have no challenges with that suggestion, because I think we need to really freshen up the ideas and freshen up the thing. And I said it just before we came off, when I said that there's the notion that the trade is a fallback if you didn't succeed academically, and which is a bad notion. And I think I was about to make the point that sport suffers the same fate, where people believe that in order, you know, if you only could play professional sport if you're not academically inclined. I look at professional football, and there are many of the guys and basketball thing. If you do the research, they have their degrees and so on. So it's not dunks people playing sports, as people just think, you know, if you think. And a lot of parents, I want to make a plug. If your child is excelling in sport, give them that push, give them that support. I don't know why we think that, you know, go get a government job. That's what we used to be told when we were growing up. Go get a government job. But the reality, if you become a professional sportsman or woman,
The government come after you.
the kind of money that
big agencies,
the kind of
big clubs come after
you listen to the kind of salaries these professional footballers are working for,
Yeah.
right? So that we need to expand our horizon, how we think about you know, education. Education is not just academics, and I think that is where we fall on. We just simply think about education as academics. Education must be all wrong, all wrong. Tech, voc, music, sport. We must develop our children all around. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I want to look at the issue of streaming. That kind of plays a role in what we discussed earlier. But how you go about streaming people? in the system. Some people say do stream, have the system where everybody come together in a class and you do what you have to do. Do you see there's some justification in streaming children? And in any case, you're going to take out the best children and send them to the so-called prestige schools. You know, there's not a need for streaming. You put people in all ability into a class and you're encouraging that. How that helped, especially those who have learning disabilities and so on. How that helped them? According to you, it's designed to fail a lot of the people.
Well, I think people are streamed naturally by our system because when you do the C exam, you know, you take out this section, they go to bishops or in Trinidad, you know, the prestige schools and so on. So that happens, right? There's that level that happens, and then in the class, the teachers will naturally have an idea of the children who will need extra attention and so on. But our system, because of the size of our classes, really makes it difficult. Because in one class, you will have children of mixed abilities coming from on top way down to the bottom. And it's worse at primary level. So given our system, it's a difficult thing for the teacher to be able to teach at all the different levels. I think what happens, it happens informally in the classroom, where the teacher now recognizes that John A. or Orlando needs additional help. So you're going to work a bit more with Orlando on certain things, right? And whereas Gerard might be understand the thing, so I could actually give him some work and let him work on his own and so on. But there is merit to streaming, and there are those who say that there's the argument that if you allow all the children to work together, then those at the top will pull those up at the bottom. So that there are arguments on
theoretical.
There are arguments on both sides. But I think that, as I said, it happens informally in the classrooms already. Yeah, because teachers generally will know the children who require extra attention, and most teachers will try to, you know, give extra attention to those who need it. You know, you'll walk around and you would actually sit with the one who's struggling a little bit and so on, and you'll know those who will be able to function on their own and so on. But it's not an easy thing to do when you have extremely large classes.
You know, and I want to get to teachers now. I don't want to say attitude, but the approach of teachers in the system. How they make the system work, or how they try to fight around the system to get the children to do their best, the best they can be, and so on. You think you're getting that kind of a drive from the teachers or the principals of the school to try and make things work, to try and approve or approach the thing with a certain target. I want to get so many children ready and prepared, not just to pass an exam, but bringing them better than you got them from the class below. You know, is there any approach to looking at it that way, instead of just teaching the children to recite this, learn this, and repeat it and just write it over? They're not giving children to think, or they're not giving them a chance to reason and analyze things in a particular way. How the teachers can do better? How you see the teachers operating, and the principals or the respective schools operating to get the best from the students and not just concentrating and get them to pass the bishops?
Well, I think it's we call 6 or 1 1/2 a dozen of the other. Because I was in the classroom and I understand the pressures of getting children ready for an exam. And I think generally there are always exceptions that our teachers really, really try their best. Given the system that we work with and the resources that we have and the technology available to us, or I mean, we live in a third world country and so on, I think generally teachers try their best. It's not easy now because there are so many distractions. There are so many other variables. I can tell you, and again, it's my opinion, the parental factor has changed from when I started to teach in 1992 to now, where, you know, you're not getting that kind of support from many of the parents and that kind of thing. So a lot has changed. But I'm of the view that, you know, the vast majority of our teachers are really trying their best. They really want what is best for the children. And they really, you know, try to put their best foot forward on a daily basis. Of course, you're going to have a small minority that not coming up to scratch.
Anyway, I want to let us end. We have about 4 more minutes, but we have to go over this time that they give us here. But we ought to deal with the discipline in schools and the violence and the bullying and so on. And it's not Tobago is no exception to that. From what I've been reading and following up and so on, not everything reached the news, but there are some issues with this. How we intend to cope with this thing, short term and in the long term?
I think a vast part of it is what I spoke about earlier. If children are placed in frustrating situation, in an environment where they cannot experience success, they are going to act out. So I started by talking earlier about the universal secondary education and how we need to look back at what we do. And when I say we, I'm talking about us in Trinidad and Tobago. We cannot continue to place children in an environment where they cannot experience success, where they are there and everything is above their head, where they want to work with their hands and they're not given any opportunity to do it. Once that continues to happen, you're going to continue to have frustrated children in the system. You're going to continue to have frustrated teachers in the system. And the system is going to continue to deteriorate, right? Additionally, I think that we need to give support to some parents, right? I think that many persons may be thrust into parenthood without, being ready and so on. I think that we need to look at a way to give support to parents as well. It's one thing to sit and talk about parents, but I believe that many of them don't really know better either, and they need help and they need assistance, and some of them are frustrated as well. So that we have to look at our most vulnerable in society. We have to look at those persons who are having challenges and so on, and see how we can help them. But the issue of indiscipline is not one simply go and say, well, okay, we're going to do a disciplinary matrix and we're going to adhere to it and we're going to punish those who are indisciplined. Because very often it's a sign of that child crying out for help. Sometimes that outward behavior, really, if you really dig deep into that child is vulnerable, that child is insecure, that child is even scared in some instances, but they act out. But we have to have the necessary professionals in the system. We have to look at our whole system and try our best not to put children under these immense pressures that we are putting them under. And I think that we really need to sooner rather than later look back at our education system and the kind of pressures that these children are placed under from such an early age. It's really competitive. Our system focuses on testing. It's testing your ways left, right, and center.
Instead of teaching, right? teaching, and getting them to understand things.
And of course, you have the parents on one side telling you, oh, teachers telling you, and it's a lot of pressure. Everybody wants you to, and nobody's even asking you, how you feel, So it's a lot of pressure on these youngsters, and some of them, act out in the wrong way. So I think that we really need to look back at that if we want to address the issue of the violence in schools.
Anyway, there's so much other things. We wanted to look at the impact of technology and so on, but apparently time is out on us and so on. But that's another big area. But Orlando, I want to ask you, please let us have another discussion to continue this kind of discourse after the series is over. And let us see how we could contribute to bringing about the necessary change in the system. Education is key to what we do, how we develop as a society.
Yes.
Changing our attitudes and so on.
It is.
Cultural practices and behavior. Getting education is not just about teaching. You rightly said earlier, it is necessary to have things like parental support and counselors in the school, letting the children be able to operate at DL level and that sort of thing. Taking the children and just suspend them and send them to MILAT, I don't even think that is a solution in itself. So there are a lot of things we have to address.
Do I have 1 minute? Would I be granted 1 minute to talk about something that is really has really irked me? And it's the media, and it's coincidental that I'm in a media house talking about the media. I have been so disappointed at media practitioners, and I'm disappointed because I believe that you must know your craft and do your craft to the best of your ability. And sometimes I see some reports passing where somebody says something. And in my view, this is my respectful view, as a media practitioner, you have to also do the research. and make sure that you present the facts and not just simply present some statement that might, I have no problem with presenting those statements. But as a media practitioner, you have to, and I want to say this across the board, do the research. Don't have people making statements that are untrue, and you are just simply bringing the statement as fact, and you are not even trying to present the facts. Because you see, we live in a society where, just as we said earlier, influences and so on. And we have to always try to be balanced in our approach. And I look at news every night. I listen to a lot of the shows, and I'm frankly disappointed. And that has nothing to do with politics. That has to do with me personally. Because I've always been a person who pay attention to the news and so on. And I think we need to lift the bar. When you look at, I used to follow CNN and those new media houses, and very often they will bring what you say, but they're going to also bring the research and saying that, okay, this is what you said, but this is what the research says. And I'm saying that is the direction we have to go, because, sometimes I get very depressed when I listen to the news when I see that certain houses are bringing certain things that, if you check it, if you fact check it, you will realize that what is said. So I want to urge the persons in the media, right? This is not just about somebody saying something. You have to remember that you are a source of education for the population, and that therefore, when you are bringing your media stories and so on, you can bring the facts of the matter. Do your research and bring the facts of the matter.
And my thing is that it must be in context. You don't be distracted. A major event taking place, you take the main speaker about some of the programs or some of the big issues or the achievement, but somebody say something on the side, or somebody cuss or something on the side. You're quick to bring that, and you miss the whole objective of the whole media conference or story that you're covering. That is what saddens me.
At times, I'm in awe at times when I listen to certain people. I would be at an event, and the part that is brought, I'm like, wow. It has, as you said, the whole substance of the thing is gone, and you take out a little part because and I'm saying that's one of my biggest disappointments. I wanted to say it here. I'm not saying that.
Everybody, we all have to try our best to
improve. Exactly, it's about the society and the country, and you have to be able to give people accurate information.
It's like if we glorify bad news or silly news and so on.
Accurate information.
We really have to do something to improve our standing and what we can contribute, whether it's media or by parenting or by teachers or the administration. All hands are to be on deck. Education is quite key for this society as we move forward. Every child has an opportunity to do something or ability to do something. Let us capitalize on those people and stop categorizing people, or they're slow, they're not going to make it, and all them kind of things. I had problems with them kind of issues in the past with some teachers also. Folks, this brings us to the end of the program. Orlando, I just want to thank you very much. This has been a very enlightening one, and I'm going to pick you up on let us having more information about different sectors of the education system, that we can enlighten people to play a greater role in making our education system better, more acceptable, and to generate greater prosperity and success for the society. All right. Thank you, folks. Tomorrow we have Tashia Boris, the Secretary for Councillor Tashia Boris, and that will be looking at tourism, transport, and communications, and antiquities, and culture, and that sort of thing. I'm sure she may have some interesting news to announce, I'm hoping, but we look forward to that tomorrow. So stay tuned. Another interesting discussion with Tashia Boris tomorrow morning on Tobago Updates Beneath the Surface. See you. Have a blessed week, people. See you tomorrow.